While I was looking in the mirror, I heard a loud noise, a bit like a gunshot. The accident happened on a Tuesday afternoon as I was driving home. The traffic was moving quickly, and my own little Ford was running well, even though it's 15 years old. I was feeling good. I just solved a difficult case, and I had a check in my handbag for $5,000. That's good money for a female private detective working for herself. I was driving in the middle lane. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a young woman in a small black car coming up behind me in the fast lane. A bright green Porsche was right behind her, and I guessed she wanted to move into the middle lane in front of me to let it pass, so I reduced my speed. Coming up on my right was a white Toyota. While I was looking in the mirror, I heard a loud noise, a bit like a gunshot. I turned my attention back to the road in front of me. Suddenly, the small black car moved back into the fast lane. It seemed to be out of control. It hit the back of the green Porsche, ran into the fence in the middle of the freeway, and then back again into the road in front of me. I pressed the brake hard to stop my Ford. At that moment, a red Mercedes suddenly appeared out of nowhere and hit the side of the girl's car. Pushing it right off the road. Behind me, all the cars were trying to stop. I could hear them crashing into each other. It was all over in a moment. The girl's car had crashed into a road signpost, and the broken sign was now hanging over her car roof. I parked my car at the side of the road and ran toward the black car, with the man from the white Toyota right behind me. The girl's head had gone through the front window. She was unconscious, and her face was covered in blood. I couldn't open the car door, but the man from the Toyota forced it open and reached inside. "Don't move her," I said. "Let the ambulance people handle it." I took off my coat, and we used it to stop the bleeding from her worst cuts. He was a man of 24 or 25, with dark hair and dark eyes. Someone behind me was asking for help, and I realized that other people had been hurt in the accident as well. The driver from the red Mercedes was already using the telephone at the roadside to call the ambulance and police, I guessed. The driver of the green Porsche just stood there, unable to move from shock. I looked back at the young man from the Toyota who was pressing the girl's neck.
"She seems to be alive,"
he said. I left him with the girl and went to help a man with a broken leg. By the time the police and ambulance arrived, a small crowd of drivers had stopped their cars to watch, as if a road accident was some kind of sports event. I saw my friend Chester Baldwin, a photographer from the local newspaper. I watched as the girl was carried into the ambulance. Then, with some of the other drivers, I had to tell a policeman what I had seen. When I read in the newspaper the next morning that the girl had died, I felt so upset that I felt sick. There was a short article about her. Sonia Charles was 21, a final year student at the University of California, Santa Teresa. She was from Venice, Italy. The photograph showed blonde hair, bright eyes, and a happy smile. I could feel the young woman's death like a heavy weight on my chest. My office in town was being painted, so I worked from home that week. On Friday morning, there was a knock at the door. I opened the door. For a moment, I thought the dead girl was alive again and standing in front of me. But then I realized this was a woman in her 40s.
I'm Christina Charles. I understand you saw my daughter's accident,
she said. Please come in. I'm so sorry about what happened. She couldn't speak at first. Then the words came slowly.
The police examined Sonia's car and found a bullet hole in the window on the passenger side. My daughter was shot.
She began to cry. When she calmed down, I asked, "What do the police say about it?"
They're calling it murder now. The officer I spoke to thinks it's one of those freeway killings, a crazy man shooting at a passing car for no special reason.
They've had enough of those in Los Angeles, I said.
Well, I can't accept that. Why was she on the freeway instead of at work? She had a job in the afternoons. They tell me she left suddenly without a word to anyone.
Where did she work?
At a restaurant near the university. She'd been working there for a year. The manager told me a man had been annoying her. Perhaps she left to get away from him.
Did he know who the man was?
Not really. They had been out together. He kept coming to see her in the restaurant, calling her at all hours, causing a lot of trouble. Lieutenant Walter tells me you're a private detective. I want you to find out who's responsible for her death.
Mrs. Charles, the police here are very good at their job. I'm sure they're doing everything possible.
I'm not so sure, but I have to fly back to Venice now. My husband is very ill, and I need to get home. I can't leave until I know someone here is looking into this. Please.
I said I would do it. After all, I already had a strong interest in the case. I'll need a few names, I said. She gave me the name of the girl who shared Sonia's room and the restaurant where she had worked. Usually, I try to stay out of cases that the police are working on. Lieutenant Walter, the officer responsible for murder cases, is not fond of private detectives. So I was surprised that he had sent Mrs. Charles to me. As soon as she left, I drove over to the police station, where I paid $5 for a copy of the police report. Lieutenant Walter wasn't in, so I spoke to Evelyn, the secretary who works in the records department. I would like a bit of information on the Sonia Charles accident. Did anybody see where the shot was fired from?
No, they didn't.
I thought about the man in the green Porsche. He'd been in the lane to my left, just a few meters ahead of me, when the accident happened. The man in the Toyota might be a help as well. What about the other witnesses? There were 5 or 6 of us there. Who's been questioned? Evelyn looked angry.
You know I'm not allowed to give out information like that.
Come on, Evelyn. Walter knows I'm doing this. He told Mrs. Charles about me. Just give me one name.
Well, which one?
Slowly, she got out some papers. I described the young man in the Toyota, thinking she could find him in the list of witnesses by his age. She looked down the list.
Uh-oh, the man in the Toyota gave a false name and address. Philip Kingswell was the name, but I guess he invented that. Perhaps he's already wanted by the police.
I heard a voice behind me. I turned to find Lieutenant Walter standing there, his hands in his pockets. I smiled. Mrs. Charles got in touch with me and asked me to find out more about her daughter's death. I feel bad about the girl. What's the story on the missing witness?
I'm sure he had a reason for giving a false name. Did you speak to him yourself?
Said Walter. Just for a few moments, but I would know him if I saw him again. Do you think he can help us?
I would really like to hear what he has to say. The other witnesses didn't know the girl was shot. From what I understand, he was close enough to have done it himself.
There must be a way to find him, don't you think?
No one remembers much about the man except the car he drove. White Toyota, 4 or 5 years old.
Would you mind if I speak to the other witnesses? I might get more out of them because I was there. He looked at me for a moment, then gave me the list. Thanks. This is great. I'll tell you what I find out. I drove to the restaurant where Sonia Charles had worked. I introduced myself to the manager and told him I was looking into Sonia's death.
Oh, yes, that was terrible. I spoke to her mother.
She told me you said something about a man who was annoying Sonia. What else can you tell me?
That's all I know. I never saw the man myself. She was working nights for the last 2 months. She just went back to working days to try to get away from him.
Did she ever tell you his name?
Nathan, I think. She really thought he was crazy.
Then why did she go out with him?
She said he seemed really nice at first, but then he got very jealous. He used to follow her around all the time, in a blue Honda car. In the end, I guess he was completely crazy. He probably came to find her at the restaurant on Tuesday afternoon, and that's why she left.
I thanked him and drove over to the university houses where Sonia had lived. The girl who had shared her room was busy packing things in boxes. Her name was Natalie Chambers. She was 22, a science student whose family lived in the town. When I asked why she didn't live at home, she said that she had a difficult relationship with her mother. How long did you know Sonia?
About a year. I didn't know her well.
I looked at the boxes. So you're moving out?
I'm going back to my parents' house. It's near the end of the school year now, and my parents are away for a month in India. My brother's coming to help me move.
Did Sonia have a boyfriend?
She went out with lots of boys.
But no one special. She shook her head, not looking at me. I tried again. Sonia told her mother about a man who annoyed her at work. They'd been going out together. They'd just finished a relationship. I expect she told you about him?
No, she didn't. She and I were not close. She went her way and I went mine.
Natalie, people get murdered for a reason. There was something going on. Can't you help me?
You don't know it was murder. The policeman I spoke to said perhaps it was a crazy man in a passing car.
Her mother doesn't agree.
Well, I can't help. I've told you everything I know.
I spent the next 2 days talking to Sonia's teachers and friends. She seemed to be a sweet girl, well liked by everyone, but I didn't get any useful information. I went back to the list of witnesses to the accident, talking to each in turn. I was still interested in the man with the Toyota. What reason could he have for giving a false name? I didn't seem to be making any progress. Then an idea came to me as I was looking at the newspaper picture of the crashed car. I suddenly remembered Chester Baldwin at the scene of the crash, taking pictures. Perhaps he had one of the men in the Toyota? 30 minutes later, I was in Baldwin's office at the Santa Teresa News, looking at the photographs.
No good. No clear pictures of him.
Chester said, "What about his car?" Chester pulled out another photo of Sonia's car with the Toyota some distance behind. "Can you make it bigger?"
Are you looking for anything special?
"The number plate," I said. When we made the photograph bigger, we could read the 7 numbers and letters on the California number plate. I knew I should inform Lieutenant Walter, but I wanted to work on this myself. So I called a friend of mine at the Department of Motor Vehicles. The number belonged to a 1974 Toyota White, and the owner was Barry Turner, with an address on Howard Street. My heart was beating loudly as I rang the bell of the house. When the door was finally opened, I just stood there with my mouth open. Wrong man. This man was tall and fat, with brown eyes and blue hair.
Yes?
He said, "I'm looking for Barry Turner."
I'm Barry Turner.
"You are. You're the owner of a white Toyota." I read out the number of the car. He gave me a strange look.
Yes. Is something wrong?
"Well, I don't know. Has someone else been driving your car?"
Not for the last 8 months. See for yourself.
He led me around the side of the house. There sat a white Toyota, without wheels and without an engine.
What's this about?
He asked. This car was at the scene of a recent accident where a girl was killed.
Not this one. This has been right here in this condition for 8 months.
He said. He looked at it again in sudden surprise.
What's this?
He pointed to the number plate, and I saw that it had completely different numbers. After a moment, I realized what had happened. Somebody stole your plates and put these in their place.
Why would they do that?
Perhaps they stole a Toyota like this and wanted new number plates for it, so the police wouldn't catch them. You could see Turner's car from the road, I noticed. I called Lieutenant Walter and told him what I'd found. He checked the list of stolen cars and found that the number, which was now on Turner's car, belonged to a vehicle reported stolen 2 weeks before. But Lieutenant Walter thought that even if we found the man, he might not be connected with the shooting. I didn't believe him. I had to find that young man with the dark hair and the dark eyes. I looked through the list of witnesses and called everybody on the list. Most tried to be helpful, but there was nothing new to add. I drove back to the university area to look for Natalie Chambers. She must know something more. The apartment was locked, and looking through the window, I saw that all the furniture was gone. I spoke to the manager of the apartments and got the address of her parents' house in Colgate, the area to the west of town. It was a pleasant house in a nice street. I rang the bell and waited. I rang the bell again. It appeared that no one was at home. As I was returning to my car, I noticed the 3-car garage at the side of the house. In the detective business, sometimes you get a feeling, a little voice inside you telling you there's something wrong. I looked through the garage window. Inside, I saw a car with all the paint taken off it. The side door of the garage was unlocked, and I went in. Yes, the car was a Toyota, and its number plates were missing. This must be the same car, and the driver must be someone in the Chambers family. But why hadn't he driven it away somewhere and left it? Perhaps he thought it was too dangerous. I did a quick search of the inside of the car. Under the front seat, I saw a handgun. I left it where it was and ran back to my car. I had to find a telephone and call the police. As I was getting into my car, I saw a dark blue Ford coming towards the Chambers entrance. The driver was the man I'd seen at the accident. Natalie's brother? He looked rather like her. Of course, she hadn't wanted to talk about him. Suddenly, he noticed me, and I saw the terror in his face as he recognized me. The Ford sped past me, and I chased after it. He turned onto the freeway, heading south, and soon I was right behind him. He was watching me in his driving mirror. Perhaps that's why he didn't see the workmen and their heavy vehicle right in front of him, not until it was too late. He ran straight into the vehicle with a crash that made my blood turn cold as I stopped my car. It was like the first accident all over again, with police and ambulance men everywhere. Now I realized where I was. The workmen in their orange coats were putting up a new green freeway sign in place of the one that Sonia's car had broken. Nathan Chambers died at the exact spot where he had killed her. But why did he do it? I guess the restaurant manager was right, and jealousy had made him crazy. Not too crazy, though, to carry out that careful plan with the stolen car and number plates. And now he was dead.